Good morning. Thank you for joining us. This is Patrick Kelly with Digital Watchdog. And this morning I've got Bobby Dick, one of our sales engineers. Bobby on the line. Bobby, thanks for joining.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so this morning we're going to be talking about our SiteWatch and NightWatch products and how they work with DW Spectrum. A lot of exciting things there to come, but so let's just do a quick little agenda here. We'll do an introduction of DW for those of you that are not familiar with it, with what we offer. We'll go into the SiteWatch product line as well as the NightWatch product line. Two unique products. Again, both of them work with DW Spectrum. So we'll get into how to set up the products since they're both IP-enabled, PoE-powered devices that sit on the network and they communicate with DW Spectrum. So big part of that is in the event rules. So Bobby will go through some of the event rules in Spectrum and what you can do within Spectrum when you receive events from the SiteWatch detectors, or if you want to control the NightWatch Illuminators from Spectrum, you can achieve that all through the event rules. So as always, this webinar is being recorded. That's a question we typically get. We do encourage questions. That's the reason, Bobby's on the line. He's one of the many sales engineers that we have on staff. He goes around the country doing trainings at various events and into offices and works on projects as well. So by all means, please submit your questions through the Zoom Q&A, and towards the end we'll review some of the questions and answer as many as we can. Any that we don't get, we'll try to follow up with an email or maybe reach out via email or phone. This webinar, as I said, is being recorded. It will be posted on our webinar page and with all of our past webinars. And we've got a number of, we've got at least 3 works with webinars scheduled coming up. We have the Blackjack AI, as well as a couple of other webinars. I think we have TOA speakers coming up as well, some technology partners coming on board. So there's a number of webinars coming up on subsequent Thursdays here, same time, same place. Sign up for the webinars and get them on your calendar. So we'll get into the introduction of DW. For those that aren't familiar, we've been around since 1987. We're specific in the video surveillance industry. I'm based here in our Tampa, Florida office. Our headquarters is in Southern California in Cerritos, and our manufacturing facilities in South Korea and Vietnam, where we do all of our R&D, Q&A, and so forth. QC and so forth through the Korean facility and the manufacturing in Vietnam of all of our cameras and recorders. Our products are NDAA compliant since they're manufactured in Korea and Vietnam. None of the components are on the naughty list of the NDAA. So all of our products are available for GSA contracts. 30 years in the business, we've tried to innovate as we go from a number of things, from our VMAX all the way up to our megapix CAS with Spectrum running on board the camera. SiteWatch and NightWatch is all part of that in terms of making it an ecosystem, an interactive experience within Spectrum to be able to do a number of things, and that's what we'll talk about. But adding new technology, like next week's webinar, we'll add the new Blackjack AI NVR, and we'll talk about that next week. As I've mentioned already, Bobby is one of the many sales engineers that we've added. We have a number of regional sales managers, and we also have a number of manufacturers representatives. Those people are out there with product in hand and ready to do trainings and demonstrations and meetings with you. They're all on our website and they're all available. So they're really a pre-sale and a post-sale support team out in the field, strategically placed to go out and talk about Digital Watchdog products, like the products we're talking today, and how they can fit into your application and provide a solution for a need. our website, we've been building that out and have a number of resources online. Our knowledge base is being added to every day. Our new online LMS, the DW University, we're adding courses to that. So there's a Spectrum certification course on there. All of our US tech support can be accessed through the website. So you can create tickets right from the website itself, which is a great tool for tracking that, as well as we have our partner portal. So if you haven't signed up for the channel partner program, you want to enroll in that and set up a plan with those regional sales managers and manufacturers representatives. Make sure that you're getting project pricing, better margins, as well as all the support and demo gear and training that you need to succeed using our products. So we encourage you to reach out and schedule some time with our folks. Now let's get into the matter at hand today. We're talking about SiteWatch and NightWatch. So the SiteWatch product line starts off with our IP detectors. So all the SiteWatch product is IP enabled. And we start off with, we actually have two products. We have a PIR as well as a dual tech sensor. And so this is, again, PoE powered. It has an adjustable pan tilt on the curtain. We'll get into that. The tamper switches are on board. The web browser interface for the programming. So Bobby's going to log into a SiteWatch, and you'll see the programming right through the browser interface to set up communication with DW Spectrum. And so the sensor itself, the sensor module is covered. You take the cover off and you'll see that the sensor module is there with a curtain that is adjustable for your application. And talking about reducing false alarm rate and looking for creating detection zones with that adjustable pan tilt head. So we do have two products, as I mentioned. We have the PIR as well as the dual tech, where it's using PIR and microwave technology. The range on this is about 100 feet. And again, PoE powered, browser interface, IP alarms, as well as there's also relay alarm outputs on the sensor as well. One of the other things we'll get into when Bobby gets into the SiteWatch is it is, as we say here, it works with DW Spectrum. It also works with a number of other products. So you'll see options in there for things like Control4, as well as some other VMS manufacturers. So the product is works with a lot of different solutions out there. Also in the SiteWatch lineup is the laser. And everybody loves to talk about the laser. It is a very cool product. And basically what the laser does is it is a fence line. And so the benefit of this particular product is that you don't need, it's a single-ended laser detector. So what that means is you don't need a receive and a transmit. You don't need to wire to both sides of it. One side you shoot, and you're going up to 1,600 feet, 1,640 foot range on this. The design of this is that it has 20 programmable zones. And within each zone, you can send different messages to Spectrum. So you can identify the zones. You can ignore specific zones. So if you have a roadway or a gate along that fence line, you can set it up to ignore that area and then have it continue on past the gate. So it's using a time of flight analytic to ascertain where the beam was crossed, and then that's how it sets up with those 20 configurable zones. You can adjust the size of those as well. So you can create specific events. Those specific events could be things like turning on NightWatch Illuminators or moving PTZs to presets. Turning NightWatch Illuminators onto a strobe mode. We'll get into that. So all kinds of different actions can be created with this. This is a PoE Plus device, but straight powered off of PoE Plus. It's a single sensor solution. And again, it has a web browser interface. all of these products have a very similar web browser interface in terms of its setup. So really, once you've set up one of these, the others are, they'll set up very similar in nature. Now, moving over to the NightWatch product line, we're really excited about the hybrid illuminator that we have. And so a hybrid illuminator combines both infrared and white light illumination. Again, this is a PoE powered device. You can get the distances up to 614 feet of distance of illumination. On the IR, it works from both 940 and 840 wavelengths. It's IK9, IP66 certified. And so the hybrid is a combination. So it works with both an infrared illuminators as well as white light, visible light, white light illumination. So, you know, what helps cameras perform better, what helps analytics perform better is light. The other benefit of light is that it can act as a deterrent. So it's in a white light, having a white light come on automatically based off of an analytic event gives you better images, but it also acts as a deterrent for somebody in that scene or in that area. So the flexibility of the hybrid to be able to be on in a non-visible IR mode, and then when somebody or vehicle is detected, to have it turn on in a white light mode allows for a lot of flexibility within the product itself. The other key component of our NightWatch illuminators is the interchangeable lens pack. And so with the interchangeable lens pack, you can create different distances so you can have it match the camera's field of view with that interchangeable lens pack. But again, you get a lot more illumination with these devices, where the cameras are typically, with their internal illumination, are good for, it varies anywhere between 50 and 150 feet. These are hundreds of feet, 300 to 600 feet of distance of illumination. And it really, blows it up in terms of illuminating a scene out there with these illuminators. So we do have a number besides the white light, besides the hybrid. We have two hybrids. We have one working at 850 nanometer wavelength, as well as another working at 940 nanometer wavelength. We do have a just white light illuminator, as well as just IR in both wavelength illuminations. So keep in mind the 850 nanometer, that's the one that you're going to get the distance up to 614 feet. So you're going to get longer distance, but there is a red glow. There is some visibility to that IR when that IR is on. The 940 is invisible, but it's up to 374 feet. So nearly 400 feet of illumination, and it's invisible to the eye. There's also a modular design to our NightWatch illuminators. So, and that's used with the accessories. So the mounting brackets. So we have a single mount, double mount, and triple mount to where you can have multiple illuminators. So they could all be hybrid. They could be combinations of white light and IR. And so the benefit here is for something like a 180-degree camera, a wide angle lens camera, you can have a triple gang of NightWatch illuminators to match the field of view of that 180 degree using 3 illuminators on the triple mount bracket. And then all 3 of those mounts are also compatible with the pole mount bracket. So you can easily attach these illuminators to a pole with the pole mounted bracket and the mount, the gang mounts. Okay. All right. So going forward here, we're going to talk about that lens pack a little bit. And these are standard, the interchangeable lens pack on all the NightWatch illuminators. And so you can adjust these with the different diffusers. So you can make it a long, narrow 10 degree all the way up to a 95 degree diffuser on board for a wide beam profile out there. So you've got different diffusers in there. The 10 degree, the 30 degrees, 60, and 95 are all included in every Illuminator. Really easy to change out and switch those diffusers out to match the field of view that you're setting up with the camera to provide that illumination. Okay, so one of the great things with both the NightWatch and the SiteWatch is that you can really create a combined solution to where for those monitoring centers, the security centers, and you can combine that solution with DW Spectrum right at the middle of it. So this little demo video kind of runs you through, to create. In this case, we're simulating, showing the lasers and a fence line, and here you see the different zones that I was referring to. So one of the lasers has zone 1 and 2, whereas the second laser has zones 3 through 8. That's going to help with those PTZ cameras in terms of which preset they go to based on the messages that they receive based on the message that Spectrum receives from the laser detectors. Okay. So here you see a little simulation of a boat pulling into a marina. It's going to break into zone 1, so it's going to trip that fence line. So we've got 2 PTZs that are moving to a particular preset to cover that area. And you'll also notice the yellow being the illuminators are turned on for those zones based off of that information as well. So all of that information being brought in the Spectrum, and then you can create in Spectrum those event rules to line them up with the presets of the PTZ camera, as well as send commands to those illuminators to turn on and to turn on at a specific power level. So you don't have to have them on at full power. You could have them on at medium power. They could be on constantly at a low power, and then when somebody's detected, have it increase the power and increase the illumination with that power rating. All right, so bring that all back in. Go through the video there. Oops. Okay, so that's kind of the high level overview of the product line and what the product can do. And so now we're going to get into, Bobby's going to cover basically how to set up a SiteWatch detector, put it online, make it communicate with Spectrum, how to set up a NightWatch illuminator. Again, the interfaces are very similar. So once you learn one, you've kind of learned them all. But you set up the NightWatch illuminator very similarly. And then what you can do in Spectrum as far as the rules engine to create those different events and actions based off of the detection and the illumination that's needed. So Bobby, you want to take over here?
Okay. I want to let everybody know that we appreciate you being online, and we'll try to answer any questions. I know I saw one that we'll definitely get to. So this image does show the front of it. Someone asked about whether or not we can see the back of it. I think there is a picture that shows a little bit of the back of it. It is very basic though. So what we're seeing here is the front of it, and you see the kind of glassy areas, and then there's these plastic drapes or curtains that you literally click to open and close them the width that you want. And so they are independent of each other. So you can have the detection area be wider on one side and the other. And you can simply set that up. Now, if you notice on the right-hand side, it talks to you about the optimum height. You should not be mounting these up under the eaves of the house at 20 feet off the ground. It's not designed for that. They really designed more of a fence line level, ideally about 2 meters up off the ground is where it should go. Though actually, I think the max height there, it tells us is 10 feet. But there is also a mirror that can be removed so that it doesn't detect close to the ground. So if you had dogs and cats walking around the ground, you can actually make it to where they're not picked up at all, and that only picks up between the height of 3 foot up to the max of 10 foot, depending upon how you have it mounted. And you go ahead and I think we need to go look at the next slide there. Patrick. Okay. Well, I was hoping I thought we had another slide there, but go ahead and go back to that one, the previous one then. But the key is that the Cat5 cable comes into this device. You need to terminate the Cat5 after you get it into the device, because there are two different rubber grommets on the back of it where the Cat5 passes through or the alarm inputs pass through. And you need to terminate the Cat5, make your RJ45 plug after the cable's been passed through that rubber grommet in order to give it a watertight seal. And on the back of it, there's also a tamper switch that needs to be compressed. If you're going to be setting up any tamper alerts, you need to make sure that that's compressed properly, so that if it's removed from the wall, you get the alert that the unit has been tampered with, because clearly they're going to have to pull it off the wall in order to be able to get into it and mess with it. And that is just a compression switch on the back side of it. Go ahead, Patrick. So as Patrick said, setting it up is very easy through the web interface. It's important to note the default IP address. These devices are not detectable by our IP Finder program. And so when you plug them in, you need to set them up individually, one at a time, because they all will have the same IP address. So you cannot just plug in 10 of them at once. It will create a problem and not allow you to set it up. So you need to plug one in and then modify its IP address, and then plug the next one in and modify its IP address so that they are each unique, and that you can then get into and set up the different units individually. The sensor settings, we will show the tabs. We can't really blow that one up. I'll try to show in a second. But basically, there's not a lot of setup on these. They're very simple to do. And you can set up different types of events, and such as like the tamper event, but then you have the IR detection events that you can set up. There are also defense events like temperature. If for some reason you were concerned that they were going to overheat or something, you can set up an alert that if they get hotter than a certain temperature, that they will send an alert as well. So the key is that configuration is going to be using a command, and add an alarm event. And so you click on edit events and you tell it what action you're going to provide. Most of the time, we're going to be going to a DW Spectrum VMS on the middle picture there, the third thing down. Though you can go to output 1 and output 2, which means that you have alarm outputs on these devices. And that is why Patrick said it works with other things. It doesn't have to work with Spectrum. You could have it triggering straight to an alarm panel or a door controller or anything like that. You could go from this devices to the inputs on a door controller if you wanted to send alerts that way. But you then can edit the actions and determine what you want to take place. And you need to create different names so that you can know one event from the other. And that's why it says very clearly unique alarm name. You want to be aware of what's happening, which source it is. Especially if you have multiples of these, you need to tell it sensor 1 and sensor 2 or so forth as to what's doing notification. Go ahead, Patrick. Okay, and so in the device, the screen that is highlighted there to the upper part of this image is from the SiteWatch detector. And in the SiteWatch detector, he's got a source listed as SiteWatch, and then the caption northwest back corner, okay? And then on the bottom right there, we have the Spectrum where you input it, but the key is that you need to set up a generic event and you need to tell the source. Now, this source, SiteWatch, is what it says by default, but you can make it PIR number 1, PIR number 2, whatever you want to make it. But whatever you call it there in the word source, that needs to be replicated in Spectrum, okay? It needs to be replicated word for word. And I would even replicate it cap locks, lower uppercase, lowercase. I'm not sure you have to, but I would do that because you won't have any problems if you do it exactly the same. And so if you add a caption, you need to put that into the next line there where it says caption. If you add a description, that needs to appear down. In this case here, we do not have description, but you should replicate from one screen to the other screen, okay? And make sure that they are exactly the same. Okay, and the hybrid illuminators set up the same way, and with the IRs again, we have the same IP address as the default address. Okay, so you need to be aware of that, and not plug one of these in the same time you plug in a SiteWatch until you have readdressed them. And they are going to be a static address only device. There's not a DHCP option on these, because if you set it for DHCP, you don't have a way to find it. So therefore, it is a static device only. I had lost mine on my service, and I was able to find it using an ARP table, but that's not something that everybody can do, and not something you want us to have to support. So just be aware you need to set them static and set them up individually. Okay, so there are in the documents themselves, when you log into the web pages, there are icons you can click, which will bring up to you like a built-in manual, which will give you the syntax structures you need. These are the default syntax examples where the IP address has not been changed. So to turn the light off or on, you have simply set in the IP address / NightWatch / LED / state / on. And to turn it off, you would put state / off. The second image there is actually incorrect because it needs to show off. And then the strobe, you're going to tell it strobe in the state, and then you're going to need to tell how long you want the strobe for. So if you want to strobe for 15 seconds, like in the example here, the timeout equals 15. That tells it how long it's going to strobe. And like any other Spectrum event that you're creating, you have a interval of action that you need to be aware of. So if you want to strobe for 5 seconds, but you have your interval of action set for 1 minute, that means you can only click it one time every minute. You know, you can't click it and then say, no, I want to strobe again and click it again, because you see right here in the interval of action, they've got it set for 1 minute. So I cannot repeat that soft trigger until a minute has passed. Okay. So if you want to be able to do it, you can change the timing there of the interval of action.
So a couple things on the screen. First of all, the second command, or the syntax for the HTTP URL, because the hybrid is both a white light and an IR, you can control those independently. So you see the added syntax for the IR control that, again, you can turn the IR on and off by adding that. The white light, it's just state and on, or again, to replace that, if you want to turn it off, you can change the state to off or here. As Bobby said, the strobe, it's 15 seconds with the timeout here. You can do up to 3,600 seconds in terms of the timeout for the strobe effect. Again, to add deterrence, to annoy, vagrant type behavior in front of particular areas, you can set that up. So you've got control of both the white light and the IR with this. And yeah, these commands are available right through the help screen in the web interface. and you can just modify the syntax. The only difference between what's shown on the help screens is that Spectrum allows you to put in the login information. So you've got your login commands down below. And so you don't have to include that in the syntax as it shows in the help screen. One other note is Bobby was talking about, because you can control these with different events inside of Spectrum. So it could be a soft trigger, and we'll show you an example of that. But it could also be automatic, i.e. an analytic. In this case, we're showing the event being an analytic event from a particular camera, that when somebody enters a zone or an intrusion area, we're going to turn on the white light we're going to strobe the white light for 5 seconds in this case. As Bobby said, the checkbox here with the interval of action, this is adjustable. You have seconds, minutes, and hours here as an adjustment for this, but it's just basically, it's not going to turn on the strobe again, in this case for a minute. So any other analytic events that are sending that, creating that, being received inside of Spectrum aren't going to trigger that action. But again, you have full control of the interval of action. You also have full control of the schedule here. So you can have that on during only particular hours at night that it's actually going to do this. So I've seen some instances where, banks and ATMs, and they have people in front of those ATMs, they want to get rid of them, they'll put it in a strobe effect, but they're only doing it between, the hours of midnight and 4 a.m. or something like that. So you have the full event rules functionality that you have in Spectrum here to enable this capability. So Bobby, why don't we, I'm going to stop.
Patrick, go back right there a second though, because you mentioned earlier the fact that we can do a boost function. And a boost function means I could have the white light illuminator turned on and providing a certain level of light. And then when the event happens, I can make it turn on brighter and boost the amount of light, so that somebody's aware that they've triggered something and something took place. And that's part of the nomenclature or syntax you can put in there also for the boost function.
Exactly. So Bobby, I'm going to stop sharing. You can share your screen and we can log into some of these devices and we can look at the actual interface live and see what's going on there. So let's go ahead and stop. You should be able to share now. Show your demo system.
Okay, so you should now see my Gen 5 recorder here. And I mentioned it's Gen 5 because of a very important function that Gen 5 provides, which is the ability to add a device as a proxy device. So I can come into these devices from Spectrum. I don't have to open a browser. I can literally just drag a device over here and then be able to log into it. Okay. And so now I can set up different events within my NightWatch, and I'm going to do the same. I'm just going to drag over the SiteWatch and just to show that one. Okay, so as we mentioned before, the PIR, I'm going to hit edit here just to show you what this looked like. So we have it going to the Spectrum VMS, the IP address of the server, and then what the source is. In this case, I did not add a caption description. I just simply have the source listed. Well, okay, it's showing my password there for my server. Just be aware of that. I'm gonna hit cancel. But that is how you set up an event. So you can hit add events and choose, in this case, PIR detection. You can choose tampering, like I said, temperature. So PIR detection, how long the delay, when it times out, event activation, Above light limit has to do with you may want it to only work at nighttime, okay, or daytime, and you can then set those things up. Okay, so as you said, the settings in the device itself, you know, you can set your ranges, and we actually have a walk test device that you can purchase, and you can then use it to test and make sure everything is triggering the way you want it to trigger. I think if you were setting these up, a bunch of these, I would definitely recommend getting the walk test device for that purpose. Again, setting your IP address, export the settings. So if you're setting up multiples of these things, you could export the settings and import them into the next one, and then just modify the few things you need to do, like change the name so they're different names, so you could be clear on which one you're in. So when we are setting things up, camera rules, and so you can add a soft trigger. You guys all understand how we do that. We click add, and we choose a soft trigger and choose the icon and what camera is involved and everything like that. I'm going to switch to a minute and show you one of those live. But if the lasers and the PIRs, what you're going to add from the laser is going to be a generic event. And so in the generic event, the source contains, that's where those different things that we showed you, you know, the source contains SiteWatch or site PIR number 1. Whatever it is you put in there, that gets put into this page here. And if you add a caption or description, and come into these fields as well. And then you tell it what you want it to do. He mentioned exit PDZ preset. So like on the marina example, you would choose exit PDZ preset. You would need to choose a PDZ camera. I don't happen to have any PDZ cameras on this system, but you would choose it, and then you would be able to choose the preset number that you want it to go to that's associated with that zone. And then again, we have the action of interval. And as Patrick said, you can set that for a second, minutes, hours, and days. Just so you need to set it appropriately. And again, you can set the schedule so that it doesn't do it all day long, but only at nighttime, and make it to where, especially if you're doing mobile notifications, you do not want to be notified multiple times. Now, be aware that if I wanted to do mobile notifications, let's say I have the laser and my zone 5 was broken and I had to go to preset number 10. If I also want a mobile notification, I need to re-add a second rule to telling me that what that event was. You know, again, the caption would contain the word zone 5, and I would create an event that says send push notifications. So you need to set those up, you know, once for the PDZ, once for a push notification on something like that. Discard the changes. Okay. And of course, you all know that with Gen 5, it tells you things like IVA intrusion. That is overlaid on my screen if I want it to be. And I can see those things. Now, I'm going to try to quickly switch to a different server that has, looking right at, there it is. These are my friends down at Southeast Security Products. If you guys have not played with the Gen 5 yet, you know that we can now route cameras into like indoor, outdoors. And so this is an indoor camera that has a soft trigger that is set up to turn the white light on. Well, if I click it. Okay. Well, maybe we have a really long delay for some reason. Okay. Because there goes the strobe. Okay. Let's try. Yeah, for some reason, there's an unusual long delay. So again, the soft trigger. Now this actually, and the laser laying here on the table, and you see how the laser has these two different glass things. As one of the slides mentioned from Patrick, is that there is ability to enable a red dot laser for the purposes of aiming, but then that does not stay on a regular basis. That's only during a test mode for that. So again, if I right click and I go to camera rules, you can see where we have these soft triggers set up, and you can see the nomenclature, the IP address, LED standard, state /off. Again, you need the username and password in right here in Spectrum, because as Patrick mentioned, in the syntax in the manual for the device, it has you put in the username and password in the string up here, but you don't do that within Spectrum because you're able to add it within here. Okay. And so again, you can create these soft triggers, and you can, the thing about soft triggers is that they're not independent to one camera. I can actually put these icons on dozens of cameras. I just wouldn't be able to see with them doing anything on the other cameras because we wouldn't be looking at them. Okay. Patrick, I don't know if there's any other questions that we might have.
Yeah, there's a couple questions in here, and a couple of them are kind of related, so I'll take it. And it's really, question about which of our devices, CAS, Blackjack. Yeah, so NightWatch and SiteWatch will work with both Blackjack NVRs as well as our CAS camera line. Essentially, you can send the command, you can send a detection event to a CAS camera running Spectrum on board, and the CAS camera can send a command using the Spectrum media server that's on board to a NightWatch Illuminator. In terms of, there's no additional licenses needed for this. Was a question that came up in terms of Spectrum. So these aren't, they're not cameras. I mean, they wire like cameras, they mount like cameras. For all intent and purposes, it's a device out there on the network, just like a camera. But you'll notice that it's not necessarily in the device tree, other than when Bobby proxied the web page using. So in terms of version, that the proxy capability that he showed is on 5.0. So you want to update to 5.0, but there's really no, yes, SiteWatch and NightWatch work with 4.2 and 4.0. The generic event and the HTTP functions, you're using the HTTP as action function to send commands to NightWatch. You're receiving SiteWatch events via generic event, and that's been in Spectrum for quite a long time. So anything after 4.0, you should be fine as far as compatibility wise.
And to answer the question on the PDZ, returning to a set point would be if you have a home position set up on the camera and you have it set to return to that home position after a set period of time, it would return. Or if you have it set to based upon it would trigger to another event. So if another zone was crossed and you have it go to a different preset, it would immediately switch to that next preset and leave the first one.
Another question that had come up, are these available for client demos? Yeah, absolutely. So that team of regional sales managers, sales engineers, and manufacturers representatives have product, can get product, can bring it out and demo it. So I know Bobby's been on a couple sites with the laser detector doing demonstrations with that. But yeah, we also have them available through the channel partner program as a not for resale product as well, that if you want to bring some in and put them in. Bobby, can you do me a favor, and do you have the, can you bring the SiteWatch Illuminator interface up again?
Okay. Let me come out of here.
Put you on the spot.
Okay. And the answer to the question, are the IP detectors paint resistant? No, you could paint over them. I mean, they're plastic. And so if you got paint on them, it would easily clean. As long as you're using a something that doesn't have a solvent that dissolves plastic. Okay, you want to see the SiteWatch device again?
Yes, please. And yeah, just log into it. So if you could edit that Spectrum VMS, go over to the edit. Nope, not that one. Over to the left. No, not that one. Cancel that.
You want me to edit right here?
Yes, please. Okay. Hit DW Spectrum VMS there, the action type at the top. So this is setting the detector up to communicate with Spectrum, and it's adding those source and caption. As Bobby said earlier, as we mentioned, it has relay outputs as well that you can communicate hardwired to it to other devices. If you scroll down on that list, you'll see that it also works with, it'll communicate directly to the NightWatch, but it'll also communicate directly to a number of other NVRs, DVRs, cameras, relays. So there's a number of different types of actions that you can program in here. And again, you can communicate with things like Lutron and Control4 with this as well. So the number of things that you can use these SiteWatch detectors for. Okay. Just
in fact, on the device configuration, you have Control4 right here.
Yeah.
Where you can click it, make it to where it identifies and get set up in Control4.
Exactly. Okay, I think we got all the questions. I think we're coming up on the time. Yeah, get close to it. Anybody else have any questions out there? All right. Well, both Bobby and I appreciate your time and joining us here this morning. And again, if anything comes up and you have any questions or need more contact information of who to contact to get those not for resale units or so forth, feel free to reach out to either of us and we'll get you in touch with the correct person in your area. All right, thanks for joining us.